9.2 here, yeah. Yep. All right.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Is there any other adjustments to the agenda? Everyone's good. So all those in favor? Carried. Opposed? I should ask because I didn't see all the hands go up. Carried. All right, perfect. All right, moving along, we'll the adoption of the minutes. So I'll now call for the November 4th, 2024 minutes of the City of Armstrong regular council meeting be adopted. A mover, Councillor Drapala, seconder, Councillor Todd. Errors, omissions, discussion? Nope. All those in favor? Carried. Next up, we have that the November 8th, 2024 minutes for the City of Armstrong Special Council meeting be adopted. Councillor Valstar, second by Councillor Todd. Any errors or omissions? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. All right, so first up we have our presentations, and I'll call on the Executive Director, Patty Noonan, and we have Rob Capello from Check Creative to present the marketing and content strategy. Chamber. Patty.
Thank you. Good evening, Acting Mayor Wayner, sorry, and Council. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present tonight on the marketing strategy that we just recently completed. I'm going to give you a really quick Coles notes because I would like you to have the full time for Rob to do his presentation. In the audience are several of our newly elected board members. So Sean Newton, Trish Van Teenhoven, Christy McClellan. That's it. And the rest were hoping to be here, but didn't make it. To do this funding strategy, we applied for funding through REDIP, and we were lucky to get it. So we moved ahead with that. We put out an RFP because we wanted to find somebody that could develop a strategy for our three pillars, which were tourism, economic development, and community. So we wanted a strategy that could attract tourists, attract new residents, and attract new businesses and help us keep them because we need to attract people to shop. So that was the reason for asking for an RFP that covered all of that. The successful applicant was Check Creative. And we're really excited. Rob has lots of great ideas. He loves small towns. He's done some work in the Kootenays. And yeah, so we're really happy about that. The project that you're going to see tonight has a couple of persona examples, but Check Creative went into a lot of detail and actually developed 25 personas. If you're not sure what a persona is, Rob can tell you, but it's basically who we're trying to market to live here. And we determined that there's about 25 different kinds of people, from students to new families to retirees and investors, which was a big one. We have applied for a second round of funding through REDIP. We just put that application in. We won't hear about it probably until February. And so after this presentation, we would like to ask the City of Armstrong Council to consider a small amount in your 2025 budget towards this project. We have asked the township as well, and the chamber is prepared as well to put some money in. I believe the ask is about 61,000, Rob. So we're not expecting any one entity to come up with the whole kit and caboodle. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Rob Capello.
Awesome, thank you. Patty said a small amount of budget, but we'll take a big amount as well, so just kidding. What I want to show you guys today is we did a full strategy, and it's about 50, 60 pages, and I wouldn't have time to present it all. It takes about an hour. I have a condensed version we're going to show today. We do have we can send you the full strategy. I think it's fine. I did download. I wasn't sure if we can share it tonight, but we'll happy to share it with you as well. So we just want to show you the condensed version. So we've been working actually with our the Chamber of Commerce for a couple of years now, actually doing some projects and working on web projects and some advertising. But we're super excited to be working on this project. Like I said, my background is actually working a lot in tourism and TODA and BC ski country and all that. So I have a tourism background in an agent from the agency side. And we just finished a pretty large project in the Kootenays with Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism. So there's some similarities that we looked at. So what I want to show you is a little bit of a glimpse of what we did today, and then obviously happy to answer some questions. We can go to the next slide. That's all good. So like I said, the project was really looking at 3 different areas that we wanted to do. We did a pretty extensive research on what the market is looking for, we believed. And we felt that coming out of, I know we probably don't like to say the word COVID, but coming out of COVID, we saw a real shift in how people are taking holidays. So they're not traveling long haul as much. What we call is rubber tire traffic. So people were looking for ways to take weekend trips, small trips, they weren't traveling as far. And we saw that from a lot of the data that you see from BC Tourism, is that the long haul travel wasn't as much as it was in the past. And then obviously we're all hit we knew with the wildfires last year, and then that really lowered tourism numbers in the whole area, the Thompson Okanagan. So when we looked at that, we wanted to say, okay, what are the 3 areas that we can really make the most effort in, or the most dent in, when it comes to this region? And we really looked at 3 different ones. So one being locals. We found a lot when we did research that locals didn't know what was happening in our area. So, and just so you guys know, we did 2 working sessions. I think, Patty, was 2 working sessions or 3? 3 working sessions where we brought in businesses and people in the community and had a couple hours together to really understand what was happening here. Okay, and I'll go through each of them. So we can go to the next slide. Actually, probably skip 2 slides. We can go to market segments. Yeah. So the 3 different segments we looked at were local residents. The second one was day trippers. So people that are just looking to come for the weekend, come for the day. Maybe they're traveling from Kelowna, Penticton, Vernon, Kamloops, Shuswap, just looking day trippers. And last one is business investors. So people that are actually coming here to invest. So we heard a lot of stories when we were talking to people that moved here and then started a business, or moved here to start a business. So we heard a lot of that. So these are the 3 segments that we looked at, and we really wanted to put the efforts around how we're going to get the message out to local residents, day trippers, and business investors. So what we created, like Patty says, we create what's called market personas, and I'm going to show you one example, but like I said, we have 20 plus of these. So I'll just show you what we do is we look at each of those audience, and within each of those segments, there's multiple people. So local residents, there's not just one persona. There's different age groups, there's female, there's male, there's seniors, there's people that just moved here, there's all these different personas. So we created one for each. And what that looks like, if we go to the next slide, so we actually named them. So this is just one example of a local resident, and her name is Sarah. And then we tell a little story about Sarah, what's important to her, what she's looking for, what an ideal experience might be, the type of technology she uses. So now if we want to reach Sarah, now we know what technology and mediums to use, what her interests are. So we start, and we built one for every single one of who we thought, and we workshopped it. So we had first round, and then Patty gave some feedback, and her team gave feedback. So we workshopped, and we ended up with about 20 plus different personas. So once we created those and we're all happy with it, we took them. What the next slide will show is what's called a customer. Now it's really hard to see this, but what's called a customer journey. Okay, so we actually decided now what we say is that most people, when they're making a buying decision, if it's tourism or buying a product, they go typically through these phases, right? So they need to understand there's awareness. They need to know that we exist. So one of the things we said, if I went downtown Kelowna and said, hey, do you want to go to Armstrong Spot Machine for Saturday? And they'll be like, why would I want to go there? Well, we want to convince them. We want to tell them why they have to come here, right? So that's awareness stage. And then the consideration, we know there's lots of options. People can do a lot of things. We want them to consider us. So that's typically they're going to the website, trying to find us. Then we got to make them act, convert. But the important thing after is once they're in our community, how are we making sure that they're coming back? What are we doing with small businesses? What are we doing with events that we're making sure they love what they're doing, they're posted on social, and they're going to tell their friends and they're going to come back. So we built this customer journey for each one of those personas that we said. And like I said, this is an example because I know we only have about 10 minutes. So I just wanted to show you what an example would look like. And then each of these have stages that where we can influence it from a marketing perspective or a business perspective or a community perspective, how we can influence those interactions with these personas that are coming. Okay. So next slide. So one more slide. Sorry, these are just the pretty slides. So what we did after that is we actually looked at key messages. So now we know who we're trying to reach. What are we going to say to them, right? And we want to make sure that we're all singing from the same song sheet, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a local business or community. We want to make sure we're all in the same message. And we came up with 6 different messages. So number 1 is rediscover your town. We heard that a lot of like people just not knowing what was happening in the community. Another one is stay local, find new favorites. So that could be locals as in community or even just from the area. Where business meets community, obviously speaking from a business sector. Now, was an important part for me that I got out of the sessions is that there's some amazing people in this community and we need to tell that story. Like we got to stop hiding it and we got to let people know all about the amazing businesses that are in this community. Discover Armstrong's hidden gems. That's again, back to the message where we did research, or people are like, why would we go there? Well, we need to tell them why to come here, all the amazing things that are happening within this region. Your next adventure is just a day trip away. So sample size of 1. My wife and I like to go day trips. We like to go away and we like to just go away for the day and bring the kids sometimes and not. Well, we just got to let people know again, right? So we want a whole campaign around, it's just a day trip away, your next adventure. And the last one is invest in a thriving future. That's on the business side. And one of the things we want to do is put a program together where we're working with local businesses, helping them how to manage social media properly, make sure their website is up to date, make sure that they're creating right content. So that's all around that part of it as well, okay? Next slide. So what we did as well, and I don't know if the link will work once we get there, but we built a full plan. So we put together a 12-month plan with a budget, and we looked at where there's opportunities for us to spend those dollars, where we can influence. So there's both sides. So you're going to see here a lot of the digital side. So, you know, our YouTube channels, our Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and all that as well. Because why I like digital is because there's an ROI. I can come back and say, yes, there's so many people saw it. There's so many clicked on it. There's so many people filled out a form, whatever it may be. But we also know that not everybody consumes media that way. I'm not on Facebook. So if you want to talk to me, how do you talk to Rob? So we looked at other means. Is there an opportunity for us to do better signage? Is there opportunity for us to work with influencers? Is there opportunities to do, you know, print, whatever it may be? We looked at everything and built a plan based on a realistic budget. Because with marketing, we all know we could spend, Facebook will take $1 million if you want to give it to them, right? So we wanted to be realistic, okay, based on where we can see a lift, how much our budget would be. And we landed, I think, like I said, about an annual budget, about $60,000 when we all went through that. So, okay. Next slide. One more. I don't know if that link's going to work. So it says click here. I don't know if we can click that, if it'll actually bring it up though. So I apologize. It probably won't. Oh, maybe. Loading. So if it does come up, it's the spreadsheet that shows where we're, oh, look at that. Awesome. So this is the spreadsheet we put together that would allow us to what our budget would be for the year. And the way we broke it down into different categories, and again, you guys can probably look at it in your own time a little bit deeper because it's going to be hard to see here, but we broke it into really 4 or 5 different categories. One being making some updates to the website. We think one of the things that would be really cool to do is create itineraries. So people are landing on the website. They can show, hey, if you want to come up here for a foodie trip, here's what you can do. If you just want to do some stuff with the kids, here's what you can do. If you like hiking, here's what we can do. We did this in Nelson really well, where we allowed people to input what's interesting. hey, I like to hike, I like to go for good dinners, and I like great coffee. You push a button and it created an itinerary in real time for you, which is really cool. So we wanted to put some dollars into creating with AI tools nowadays, a lot more cost effective than it was even a couple of years ago. So we wanted to do some updates to the website. We want to create content. We want to work with local people here to actually do video content, influencers and so forth as well. So we want to work with people in the community to do that. So we want to tap into the talent that's already here to create really cool content to get it out to the people. And then we want to do spend. So that's our paid advertising. So right now it's mostly digital and social. Again, based on budget, we wanted to do things where we had an ROI. So we can come back and say at the end of the month, here's what we saw, here's what happened. And here's what we think the return on it based on the spend. We called one own media. So there's a really good database. We have a newsletter that goes out. We just want to be able to capitalize on that, maybe create a better strategy around how we get people and maybe segment it where everybody in this room, if we signed up, each one could be a different message to everybody because what's important to me might be different, what's important to you and what's going to make me actually act. And now with AI technology, it can do that dynamically for you. So that's a strategy. And then the last part is we put in, two more parts. One, we put in the workshops. I mentioned that we want to work with local businesses to help them make sure that they're using social property websites up to date and creating content. And the last part we put in there that if we're managing it, that's how we get paid to manage it. So a lot of the things we can work with the chamber and the team, but they're a small and mighty team. So we put budget in there for us if we're managing and executing on that as well. So that's what we put in the media plan. So back to the presentation. There's one last part. So the last part that we put together as well, we wanted to show, this is real preliminary. We're still workshopping it, but just wanted to show sort of how if this all comes together, what it looks like. We can go to the next slide, one more. So what we want to show, there's 3 different ads. And again, these aren't final. These are just to show you preliminary what this could look like in an ad format. So discover more than a destination, explore, connect, thrive. And we can start showing activities that are happening in the region. Next slide. Discover more than a destination, again, showing different areas that we can highlight. And then everything's just plan your visit today so we can drive people to the website. And then the last ad is discover local charm, which we all love that saying is like, come and discover the local charm here. And that's where we can actually really start highlighting some of the businesses in the market and what they're doing here. So I think that's the last slide. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Todd.
No questions. It's a great presentation.
Thank you.
It looks really, really good. I was looking at it today. I think it's shows the city in a great light, shows the area in a great light. I think it's a wonderful job.
You guys did it. I just brought it out. Any other questions?
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Great presentation. Rob, can you just clarify for me on the advertising budget piece? That's the unfunded portion that you guys are applying for grant funding for?
I think a portion, probably Patty, you can speak to that better.
So that budget, we applied to have it fully funded. We don't know if it will.
Okay.
So the application that we made includes that, the business retention and expansion strategy, that implementation, and then a couple other smaller pieces. So part of the North Northwest Mountain Coalition. We put some money in for that as well for creative. So, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just in, yeah, so we've applied for full funding, whether we get it or not. It's,
Yeah,
crap.
you'll find out.
We wait and see.
And then a follow-up to that one, Patty, and you probably the best to answer this one from an operational perspective. Who is going to be executing the plan if you did get the funding? Is that you're budgeting to have an expansion of staffing in there, or who's
No,
going to be?
so if we get it fully funded, we will be turning it over to a specialist. We really don't have that capacity.
Okay, that's
we
what I was
could.
curious.
But, and there are some portions of it, the newsletter, we already contract out our newsletter. Right now that person does it at no cost to us. But it would be nice to actually pay them for their contract. And our chamber social media and our tourism social media accounts are also contractors. So we'd kind of bring it all together and have Rob's team.
So then the plan would be then is to, if you do get the grant funding, to move forward, to set up a contract, a term contract with
Yeah.
a contractor to execute the
Yes.
expo. Okay, good.
Yeah. If we don't get the funding, then we'll work with Rob to see what we can do in-house with who we have now. If you've met Haley Martin, our other full-timer, Haley's pretty amazing, and she can develop some good content. So we might find a way that she can do some work with Rob. And as we come up with little bits and pieces of money, we'll do another piece. If I have time for one other quick comment, the slides you saw that had our logo on it, those are just mock-ups. So when we get finished all this and we know where our funding is coming, there will be other opportunities for other partners to be featured on those. And we will be sharing the content. So the Explore North Okanagan group is looking for some content. This will help us provide them for some content for tourism marketing without us having to develop it. So I think that's it. Unless you have more questions for
Councillor
Rob.
Valstar, I believe, has a question.
Oh,
Yes, thank you very much. The presentation was awesome. To follow up on Councillor Nitschy's comment there, just if the grant funding works out, will Rob use the contractors that we currently have in place? Or would they just take a step back for the period of time and then come back afterwards?
can I ask you to repeat the question if I'm
So
not sure I understood it quite?
So right now, you currently got a couple of contractors that do it for a fairly low amount. If the funding comes through and Rob takes over, will he still use those people?
Yes,
Okay,
because
Okay.
Haley is part of our team, whether she's doing
Yep.
some content for Rob. Our chamber newsletter person will continue to do that, but
sweet.
Check will make sure that everybody's sending the same message out, so they will do the managing of it.
Cool. And then the second thing is just more of a comment. When I was going through the agenda, the customer journey is like one of the coolest sheets of paper I've read in a while. It's like the amount of information and the logic behind it is fantastic.
You
Just-
should see the other 20
I could only imagine.
because
Anyways, thank
they're
you.
all different. They're all, there might even, is there a metalhead on there? There might even be a metalhead, so. Thank you again for the time. Thank you for.
Just to see, are there any other questions before they disappear? Okay, excellent.
Thank you again.
You're
It
welcome.
was nice to see you all.
So I want to say congratulations to the new board, and I really appreciate just the strategic approach to moving forward with the market, and then also the storytelling behind the strategy. I like that as well. So thank you. Moving along, we have our departmental updates, and first up, we have our interim CAO with the corporate services update, Philippa Harding.
So council actually already received a monthly update at the beginning of the month at our last meeting. So on ours is pretty much our communication segment to update you on what has been keeping Emily running at mock speed. And she today actually launched into doing a sort of a user-friendly budget page as well. So it'll be like a budget highlights as opposed to council highlights with charts. And so a resident can look at it and understand right off exactly what it is, as opposed to trying to figure out line items and that's what she's working on right now.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll move along to Public Works, or Brad, Director of Operations. Sorry, did I miss one? I'm sorry. So we have Community Services up next. Sorry, Warren. It's just that small little line there. I must have.
That's all right. I think I jumped the gun last time and got out in front of, or tried to get out in front of corporate services, so. So I apologize for having to provide a non-written report, but I will provide you a verbal report this evening. The reason being is last week I was away for pretty well the full week at a emergency management conference that focuses on building resilient communities around emergency management. Phenomenal conference, first off, I will say. It was one of those conferences I was going into not sure what I was going to walk out with, and I left going, I wish I'd been at every session. Phenomenal amount of engagement opportunities, which was great. But really a focus of the conference was really looking at engaging with our Indigenous communities, bringing awareness to the impacts of emergency events on their communities, whether it is during an event, post an event. So for example, there was some discussions around Linton that was heavily devastated by wildfire, and how they responded to the incident and the after effects, specifically to dietary. So if you think about it, you've got elders within the community that have spent their lifetime utilizing what is given to us within the land, and then that is taken away. So how do you respond to that with ESS? Those things aren't readily available. And then recuperating from an event and how those things are taken away and how do you respond to that in the future. So it was very opening and really create a lot of opportunities for additional discussions in different ways and looking at how we can engage with our Indigenous community, specifically with the use of our fairgrounds back in 2021, as we did have members from OKIB utilizing that space. And are there things that we can do to better accommodate their needs going forward? There was also a session on technology and innovation that was led by Steve Newton, who's done some contract work for us in the past. Very eye-opening to seeing what opportunities are out there, not only to look at mitigation opportunities, but also response, as well as also recovery. I know the word AI seems to be very sort of scary in what we're seeing, but it also will provide a number of opportunities. And I'll be excited to bring that information forward to you as those opportunities do present themselves in a more formal configuration. And then ultimately with FireSmart, attended a couple of sessions on FireSmart, but it was also repetitive throughout the entire conference that it was spoken to very frequently, the effectiveness of it, the impacts that it had. So for one example was within the West Kelowna fire, where there was a property that had been through FireSmart within a residential area of 8 homes. The only home that survived was the one that had FireSmarted itself. So it was intriguing to hear that information firsthand from the first responders, but also to give us specific evidence that showed us that it does work. That leads into my next component of FireSmart itself, just to provide council with a bit of an update. So we have put out an RFP for our community wildfire resiliency plan, which is a key component of first year funding. The plan will identify the community as a whole, what all of our risks are as the community as a whole, opposed to individual properties. It'll include assessment mapping, looking at mitigation opportunities and goals for our community as a whole as well. It'll help establish engagement methods and opportunities to work within our community, such as working with other community groups or leaders within our community. And then also create linkage between such things as our OCP, our emergency management plan, and if we do receive the funding for this year from the province to establish our HRVA. So all very key components to leading forward with FireSmart. And then lastly, we're anticipating that we'll be putting out probably by possibly the end of December. We'll probably wait till the first week of January to do a posting for our FireSmart coordinator. And ideally we'll have that individual starting in February and then completing the contract by the end of September. And lastly, but not leastly, a little bit of an update on the discussions that we'd had at the last council meeting regarding implementation of a flag policy. So staff have continued to do some work on that and looking at what some of the requirements are and needs. We have established that we would probably need to purchase and or acquire additional poles to accommodate all of the flags that we potentially could be flying. So we'll be bringing back some more information for budget considerations potentially for 2025. There'll be things such as the number of poles that we would require and also placement. So for example, we do have 2 flag poles across the street. To acquire and place 4 flag poles within that geographic area may be difficult. So we may be required to look at potentially moving those flags. So those things will be coming back to council in the coming weeks.
Thank you for that update. Any questions? Excellent. Well, thank you. It was a lot of work. Thank you. Next, now we have Brad Ackerman, our Director of Operations, with the Public Works update.
Thank you. Quick update from operations. First off, we have our water consumption for the month of October. As you can see, we're trending in the right direction. Consumption is down overall, relying just 1% on, actually 100% out of Fortune Creek for 2024. So all is good there. Prepared for winter operations, we've now shifted into that. All our equipment fleet is up to date and maintained. Cutting edges put on and ready to go for pending snowfalls. Staffing is switching over to a 12-hour coverage rotation. So we have coverage from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Just to have that level of service available for some of the busier traffic periods throughout the day. We have 1 staff member, or actually 2 staff members starting on the early shift at 6 a.m., 4 coming in at 7, and then 1 on the late shift to do that additional sanding and plowing if needed. Basically, we're staffed Monday to Friday. We do have 1 on-call staff member who does that call-out rotation for the weekend, monitors weather conditions and responds and plows R1 and R2 routes. If additional resources are required, they then make that call to have staff members come in for that. And then just a quick overview of our snow clearing fleet. 2023 Western Star plow truck, a 2009 International plow truck, 2020 Volvo loader, a 2012 Case backhoe, and a 2016 Willys sidewalk tractor, and then our Dodge Ram mag truck, which does our pre-treatments there. So small fleet, but was able to provide that required level of service. I can answer any questions if there's any of council.
Questions, Councillor Valstar?
At the last council meeting, we asked you to look into the intersection changes. And like our hope was that we would start the consultation and see if we can figure something out before winter hits. The snow is coming down the mountain pretty hard. I was wondering if you have an update on that.
We are still scheduling with the traffic engineer for a site visit. So that is in works, but has not taken place as of yet.
And just to follow up, so you've started the process and you're looking to schedule something soon?
Yeah, his availability, he's been away, he is now back. So we're just waiting on confirmation on when he can make a trip up from Kelowna for the site visit.
Okay.
Any other questions? Councillor Fowler?
Thanks, Brad. Brad, we've had the reports for the water consumption pretty regularly, but I've never asked the question. Is the daily average consumption just what the city of Armstrong uses, or is it all the water that we sell to our partners as well?
That is all the water exiting our water treatment plant. So that does provide total consumption amongst all of our providers.
Thank you. And one other question. So we do know snow clearing of sidewalks on weekends and statutory holidays, and that's the same as it was last year?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it's comes down to our available resources. The R1s and R2s are that first priority. We do have that requirement to go back and plow those potentially multiple times throughout a major snow event. And then we transition into S1 and S2 for the sidewalks. But typically we're not resourced for that weekend coverage.
So is there an opportunity, or do we have opportunity to have a backup contractor available if we have a heavy snowfall on Friday night, for example?
We
That
have,
means late Monday before the sidewalks would get done, right?
yeah, yeah, we do have some provisions for contract services, but somewhat limited because they do have their contracts as well. We haven't fulfilled that role with one permanent person. We just have an on-call list that we can refer to if needed.
We got pretty lucky last year, I think, without a lot of snow, but if it comes true that we're supposed to get lots of snow this year, we might find that a bit problematic.
Depends on when the snowfall starts, and we can make those field decisions based upon accumulation and where we're at in the R1 and R2 routes.
There's an easy out for that. If you could just arrange for the snow to only fall Monday to Thursday, then we'd be okay.
I've been still working on the summer portion of it, so we can get rainfall from 10 PM until 4 AM.
Okay.
But-
Keep working on it.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you for that report. It's a busy time in Public Works. Okay, next up we have Manager of Planning Services, Lori Cradell, with the Planning Services update.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not a lot in our update today because most of the things we're working on have been coming into council. We were obviously focused on getting ready for the open house. We had about 70 people come out, so I feel like that's pretty good. Lots of great conversations. People were really engaged. People spent a fair amount of time here. There weren't anybody just popping in and popping right back out. I think people wandered around. They asked lots of hard questions and talked to lots of people. So that's really good. Comments close this Friday or Thursday, I mean. So we're hoping to get, once the comments close, pull together the next update of the plan if there are changes to come forward. Bring it to council for first reading, and then after first reading, what we'll do is we'll send it out to the agencies for referrals. Now, unfortunately, of course, we're bumping up against the holiday season, so that'll probably take us some time into January. So we give people time to actually read it and review it. Otherwise, we've been working on the Kerry plan to get that ready for presentation to council at the meeting on Thursday.
Excellent, thank you. Questions, Councillor Fowler?
Thanks, Laura. I'd just like to make a comment when people come to our open houses, they usually come with a concern, and it's really good at the end of the evening to have had people come with their concerns and talk to staff and talk to council and get the facts and go away more pleased than they would be if they didn't and then end up on Facebook. So, you know, I just really encourage people to come to these open houses and actually talk to the people who are presenting plans and have had experts that are looking into what would be okay to present for decision making. But there were several people that were at the official community plan open house that came in with a bit of attitude maybe, and left totally confident that they got the answers and that they can work around those things. So really nice if we had more people come.
Thank you for that observation, Councillor Fowler. I would also just encourage people to come and talk to us at any time, to phone us or email us. I mean, we're here 5 days a week to answer these questions. So.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Follow-up? Great, thank you. I also enjoyed the open house. It was a great opportunity to talk to people and to really hear those problems and then work through them and get that feedback. So next up, we have our presentation, the reports we have for community services. The Manager of Community Services, Warren, with the online dog licensing options memo and recommendations.
Thank you. This past year, staff were asked by council to look at the opportunity of potentially bringing in an online dog licensing system. So staff did bring that information forward tonight for you for council to consideration. When looking into this, we did some research to find out if there was multiple organizations and companies that provide this service. It is very limited. We were able to locate 3 companies that do provide it. 2 of those companies do not keep their data and information enclosed within Canadian airspace isn't the word, but that's the one I'm going to go with. Where DocuPet does provide it, the security of keeping it within the Canadian borders. So that was significant recommendation from our IT provider, Sea to Sky. It was a great concern that if we were providing public information that would be kept outside of our boundaries, that that would be highly looked and frowned upon. So it really backed us, unfortunately, into a corner of only being able to have the option of keeping it in-house or moving forward potentially with DocuPet. So under our current licensing system, it operates that licenses are valid from January 1st through to December 31st. Billing is initially sent out if there is a previous working relationship with a family. And if they are found to have not put their licensing in order, then they are in contact with, or city is in contact with them, and we give them until the 15th of March to bring that license into place. So there is work that is entailed in managing these, and this is going to be a constant theme throughout some of our discussion this evening. So there is time that's committed to ensuring that people do require or that do have a license, do have that in place. So not only our administrative people, but also our bylaw officers. This is something that they frequently look at when dealing with dog complaints. Number 1 is the dog license within the city of Armstrong. There are an exception where there is no fee charged for a license, and that is in the case of service dogs. So a dog would have to be registered as a service dog, guide dog under the province and meet the regulations of the province in order to receive a license that does not require a fee. Those are free of charge as long as they meet the requirements. Quite often we find that we will be notified of a dog being at large, and by the time we get there, people have already used social media and the dog has been brought back to their owner, which has been fantastic and reduces the amount of workload, but also just basically quickly and easily reunites dogs with their owners. And that usually happens within minutes to a minimal amount of hours, causing less stress for the dog. There are options, there is an option for people when they do license their dog that cannot come into City Hall during our operating hours. They can go to Armstrong Veterinarian Clinic and do licensing through their program that they support us with. There is an administrative fee that they collect on each license that they retain to cover the cost of their administrative time on processing licenses. So in looking at DocuPet and the options of online licensing, some of the benefits include that the license would be valid for the date of 1 year from the date of purchase. So we're not automatically always going to be working on a calendar year. Yes, some of the licenses that we currently have would carry over, but it does provide the opportunity at any time for a person to go online 24/7 to be able to license their dog. So that's a huge benefit that would not restrict them from being able to purchase it. They still could come in person and purchase a license online through City Hall at our front counter. We could work with the individual to do that, but ideally they would be able to do that on their own at any time. As I spoke to earlier, there are administration costs in managing each individual license, as well as also going through the process of monitoring those licenses and following up when licenses aren't renewed. So there is that consideration. Some of those costs would be eliminated under the online system because there would be very minimal amount of work that would be created for the bylaw staff and for administrative staff to manage each individual license. There is reporting available. There's also a variety of other opportunities that they could provide to the city. We would have the ability to receive marketing tools. We would have the ability to look at a door knock program that they have, that if we have known residents that do have a dog, we could be proactive going out and selling licenses and promoting licenses to potential families that do have unlicensed dogs. The online system, DocuPet, also comes with a 24-hour, 7 days a week dispatch system. So an individual should find a lost dog or have a lost dog, they can call in. There's an immediate file created so that that way, if the dog is found through the DocuPet system, they are in contact with the owner of the dog, and vice versa. They have the ability then to contact us, let us be aware of a found dog, if the owner should not be contacted, as well as also if there is a dog that is lost, then they can get an information out to us as well through that system. There is a couple of different options. There is a basic tag that comes with each license. Individuals also have the opportunity to get a designer tag that is over and above the cost of the regular license. Those designer tags support a 20% donation to a charity of our choice. So if people decide they want to get a $25 tag instead of the $7 tag, they want to put Buddy's name on it and his phone number and so on and so forth, and it's in the shape of a dog bone instead of a circle, they can do that. So 20% of that sale would go to a charity of our choice. And each is no different than our system, but each tag is individually numbered and assigned to one dog. So additional things to consider is that we do sell approximately just over 200, on an average, just over 200 tags per year. Terry was able to get me some additional breakdown of costs this afternoon that weren't included in the report, so I will provide that information for you now. So it was outlined that currently our annual dog licensing fee is $25 times the approximate 200, so that's $5,000 that's brought in annually in revenue. There is potential to look at increasing the cost of licenses. It's something that hasn't been done in my time period of being here. Licenses are currently $25, and we are behind in what other organizations charge for a similar program. So there is a possible suggestion of looking at increasing that amount from $5 to $7. With DocuPet, there is a one-time startup fee of just under $5,000, and there is an additional $100 fee each month. Those costs wouldn't come to over a 3-year term. We'd be looking at $8,600 over the 3 years. Potential revenue is approximately, where this is some of the calculations that Terry provided for me, was that we were looking at the potential of additional costs of, well, there was the $6,400 for the 1 year, with the additional $5,000. There was potential looking at up to a $13,500 deficit based on our current numbers. So that is based upon the one-time annual fee. We would, over time, get that back, but there is a substantial cost up front that would potentially curtail us from participating in this. They have changed the format and how they provide this service now to communities. Previously before, which some of the other organizations within our area, such as the two regional districts, there was costs that was entailed on a per licensing fee plus the annual fee. So that has actually changed now. So that information is new to us, and we want to ensure that that's fully aware, that it's aware for the public and for council to consider. So with that being said, does council have any questions? There is a recommendation, but I am aware that there's some new information that's come forward this evening.
Right, Councillor Nietzsche.
Warren, thanks, and thanks to Terry and staff for putting this together. I think it's one of my requests I made a year ago, and I really appreciate you guys adding this to the work plan and providing council with these options. Just a couple of comments and questions and maybe a suggestion. And just looking at the stats for the annual renewable licensing fees, clearly they're going down. Part of that is the reason why after you buy an annual renewable license, you don't need to buy one next year, which makes sense why we would be seeing decreasing numbers. I'm just wondering if perhaps the price for that might be a barrier to entry too, and given that we're having some economic challenges, might be affecting some of those numbers as well. I'm going to assume that we have more than 199 dogs in the city of Armstrong, and so I think that compliance is probably a challenge for us in that people just aren't buying their licenses. The purpose that we brought this forward, or I wanted to bring this forward, was a couple of things. One was to reduce the administrative burden on the piece. One of the things I noticed is that there wasn't an online option to just go and renew your dog tag annually. You had to physically come in here, pay your $25, get your tag, whatever else. It seemed a little bit burdensome for me, given the fact that everything seems to be able to buy something online nowadays. So this resolves that issue, which is nice to see. The other piece is that, I think we really want to encourage compliance with with our dog control bylaw. For a couple of reasons. One, obviously, we want to ensure pet safety. And I think that's the big piece here, is that we want to encourage people to license your dog, not because the bylaw says you have to, but because it's an opportunity for you to buy your license and ensure that if Buddy gets loose and gets out, then there's an opportunity to find them and return them to their owner. And so, I think thinking of those components, this all makes really good sense to me. But thinking back to the compliance piece and those barriers to entry and to try to encourage people to buy in, I'm wondering if we should perhaps, if we do move forward with the program, is offer an initial discounted period for the annual renewable license of 3 months at a 50% discount to see if we do get an uptick in people that will buy in, if they can buy their annual license for $60 for the first 3 months, and see if there's an opportunity there to get that. Because I think in the end, it helps the revenue side of your piece initially for our initial startup costs. And then it also is a little bit of a bonus for people who want to maybe just purchase a new pet and are going to expect to have Buddy for a long time. So I'm fully supportive of the recommendation that staff are making. I think you guys have addressed everything that were in there. I think it's a good program. I agree with you. There's probably limited options in terms of what's out there in the marketplace for these type of software. It's a pretty niche market, but I think that this goes a long ways to the evolution of what we're working towards, which is, that efficiency piece and ensuring that we're addressing public safety. So I'd like to hear what the rest of council says, but I would be prepared to add an amendment to that in the second and that the city provide a 50% discount on annual renewable licenses for the first 3 months post-launch, something to that effect. I'd like to hear just council's discussion on it.
Anyone else? Councillor Feller?
Yeah, thanks, Warren. We have DocuPet at Regional District North Okanagan. It came in a few years ago since I've been there, and considerably less concerns with staff time and more dog licenses because people could do them online. They didn't have to come in during hours. One thing I was wondering about those who have lifetime pet licenses now, how will that roll over?
So that would be carried over. So those licenses would still exist and that information will be transferred over to the new program.
So there wouldn't be a necessity for the new tag?
The new tag would be sent out to those individuals. They would be contacted and they would be provided, probably not by mail right now, but hopefully the postal strike is over should we choose to go forward, but those tags will be mailed out to those individuals. Just a comment in regards to looking at fees and charges. One of the things that did come forward is a number of municipalities and regional districts have moved away from a tiered system for neutered and spaded animals. It's a level playing field where there is one fee for both. And that has seen a significant difference where normal practice has been in the past that there was a substantial difference in cost. And that was, I think, originally used as an initiative to promote people to get their dogs spayed or neutered. It necessarily hasn't supported that and is actually in some regards, I think it's quite easy to say that it's actually prevented people from coming forward and licensing their dogs.
Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for my clarification, we went from a city net profit for 3 years for $6,400 to a $13,000 deficit. Is that, am I correct in that?
Yeah, so Terry, I don't know if you want to maybe go over the insight of the information that came in late this afternoon.
Thank you. By moving from our current manual system to the DocuPet system over a 3-year period, we would lose approximately $18,500 in net revenue over a 3-year period. So the net revenue with DocuPet is estimated to be $6,400 for the 3-year period. Net revenue right now in our existing process is around $25,000. If the one-time DocuPet fee was covered by a reserve, such as accumulated surplus, because it's a one-time fee, the net loss in revenue over a 3-year period would be $13,500. So going to a more efficient platform, there is cost for that. We are losing revenue doing that.
Sorry, that would be ongoing after the 3 years? Would we just continue to lose money every year?
We're looking at a 3-year horizon here,
Right.
but that would be for 3 years. But if it continued after that, if we were continuing to use DocuPet, we would see that every 3-year period. Because we were quoted at a 3-year term through DocuPet, I wanted to make sure we're comparing to 3 years under our current practice. So that would be a 3-year.
Councillor Drapula.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense. But I think something that would also be worth considering is the potential increase in licenses that we gain from moving over to a system like that. So then you get the more revenue from the increase in licenses would offset that loss.
Or any other questions? Okay, we had a possible amendment to the motion. Councillor Nietzsche, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I would move that amendment that I'd mentioned there as, which would be the second, and that the city provide a one-time 3-month promotional period of a 50% discount on annual renewable licenses. Does that make sense?
All right, so we have, did you want to move the motion so that the transition? Okay.
Yeah, and I'll move that motion as amended.
We have a seconder to that motion. Councillor Todd. And is there any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Todd.
Sorry, Shirley. I guess we're not losing money that we haven't made. I think that's was my concern. So if we're not actually losing any money, we haven't made the money, but we can't make the money if we do it this way. Am I correct in that to some degree?
Not sure. Warren, did you want to try and answer that question or?
I'll refer to the financial guy again. Yeah, it's one of those things we don't know. We could have Councillor Fowler be the only one who registers her dog in 2025. I don't think that will happen. Through conversation with both regional districts and other communities that have put this program in place, they have seen a substantial increase. One is it's because you're promoting it. I think even if we were to go out 2025 and stay with this program and promote dog licensing, we could get an increase to take place. But that being said, we also have to look at, I estimated approximately 33 hours being saved. That's pretty conservative. When you look at one individual license, by the time you have a conversation with an individual, get the application filled out, do the mail out. Sometimes there's multiple mail outs. There is a cost that it is incurred. by the taxpayer to facilitate dog tags. That $25 fee is supposed to cover that cost. Is it under an hour amount of time? Yes, for the least problematic dog. But we also get into those unique situations that there is more than an hour's time spent on one individual dog through all levels of administration and bylaws within the city.
Counselor Fowler.
Thank you. So I would think that the incentive to have a discount for the first little while would be a benefit, but why just the single? Isn't there a benefit to us to have the lifetime licenses done? Why not put a discount on that for a limited period as well?
I think that's what it
Oh,
was.
I thought you said, okay. Perfect. I thought you had said annual renewable and that's why I was questioning it. Thank you.
Any for Counselor Valser?
Yeah, so just to get it straight, so moving over to the new system would approximately save about 33 staff hours is what you estimated it at? Yeah, okay.
Any further questions, thoughts? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, carried. And moving along, we have corporate services with the Legion banner program and banner policy. Philippa.
Good evening, council. So this is the result of lots of back and forth with the Legion and council and presentations and meetings and discussion. And at the last meeting, as you are aware, not the last meeting, but a previous meeting, council passed the resolution asking staff to come back and include policy and items that review the future of the downtown core in relation to the banner request. General consensus was, as far as the staff understood, that we would like to support the Legion in the raising of their extra banners, so 3 more poles, especially as they have now said that they have found a contractor that can raise them, that has all the insurance and the proper equipment to do it. Fantastic. And then we also have, as you can see from the report, an extra cost. Currently, the 3 poles in question are equipped with hardware for flower baskets. Hardware for the banners is different. Said hardware must be custom made. And so not too keen to go back to the Legion and say, hey, great, you found a contract to do this. Now we need an extra $3,000 so we can do the hardware. So staff is recommending that we authorized out of our 2025 budget this amount to come out for the hardware to be made, and staff will place it onto the poles so the Legion can raise these banners. So that is resolution number 1. That the purchase and installation of hardware on 3 additional poles be authorized for the Legion banner project in 2025. The resolution number 2, that no further commemorative banners, flags, or sidewalks or crosswalks be considered until such time that the comprehensive Armstrong revitalization initiative, the CARRY project, has been fully implemented. That is more so we don't end up with a variety of banners on a variety of poles and different commemorative sidewalks or crosswalks and colors and just a whole hodgepodge of items going up within our downtown core. So our thought is that with council putting so much time and effort and grant funds into the CARRY project, that as opposed to putting up something and then have CARRY project say, hey, let's do something else, so we're gonna have to take it all down. Let's just put the brakes on, take a little time, get our design plan really just nailed down, and then we can revisit a policy for the banners and commemorative sidewalks and flags.
All right. Any questions? Do we want to put those, do this one motion at a time, maybe? We'll do the first motion that the purchase and installation of hardware on 3 additional poles be authorized for the Legion banner project in 2025. Mover? Cernici, seconded by Councillor Drapula. Discussion? Okay. Oh, Councillor Fowler.
So just for clarity, so there's 3 poles on the boulevard now, and we're gonna put in 3 more for 3 more sets of banners. Is that, I'm kind of confused there.
So they currently have their poles with their banners. They want to put up 6 more banners, so they've requested 3 more poles.
Okay, but on Pleasant Valley Road?
Yes,
So is that going to be, I mean, we're doing our carry project right now. So what if in the meantime we have some changes in the boulevard? I'm just wondering, I noticed that they had some banners on the property in the parking lot that look great. Would they consider having the poles and the banners maybe along the side of the parking, just in case some changes come up? I'd hate to put them up and then find we're gonna do something different and then they come down again.
they are, from my discussions with them, very keen on having them up on Pleasant Valley.
And that may be temporary until we do our carry. I mean, that's the only concern I have.
Councillor Drapula.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, we're just talking about hardware on the existing poles. We're not talking about putting additional poles up. And so if the poles happen to be removed in the future, they could just hang their banners on their property.
So it's potentially temporary.
Correct.
I'd be fine to do that if, as long as everybody understands. We're totally supportive of the banners. I think it's a great project. I think anybody who had family that were involved in the war and their memorials are great, even those who didn't have families. And that, I have no problem with that at all. I just think if they don't understand that it might be temporary for now, that it would look like we're being bad by taking them down in 3 years, but locating them somewhere else, if we do that, would certainly be something I would go for. And definitely I'd be happy to put them up now, as long as we understand there could be a change when we finish our carry project.
My suggestion would be you might want to do an amendment to the resolution stating that.
How does everybody else feel?
Do they have a
Councillor Todd.
position where they want to put the 3 new poles? Is it right out in front of the Legion? Is that what their plan is?
The poles are already there. Currently, they are set up for hanging flower baskets. So they are
So we're just talking, like
Yeah.
Steve says, we're just talking about the hardware.
correct.
The poles are there,
The poles
but
are
they
there.
might come out, but they might not. So I think we can probably work around that and not move them if we don't want to. It's up to us, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
They're your poles.
Yeah.
We have Ms. Cordell in the back for that comment.
I just want to say, like, it's highly likely that they will come out with the carry project when we get there, because we're redoing the whole sidewalk and the width and everything. But when that is, that's the bigger question.
But they could be reconfigured still in front of, even if we move them, we can still reconfigure them in front of the Legion.
And they will be replaced with other poles, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Councillor Fowler.
So yeah, so I'll make that, if it could be a friendly amendment. Definitely not opposed to the banners. Let's get that clear. I have no problem with them at all. But I just foresee when we're doing our carry project that it still looks like we're positive and that we, with the program, and that we'd try and find a resolution if something changes when that project is completed.
Commented.
I'm just unclear as to what the amendment is. So if we could have some sort of a
Yeah, so
written
we can,
We
piece,
can
I would prefer.
reevaluate, maybe the friendly amendment could be, and that potential reevaluation when the carry project is completed.
right, Councillor Velser.
The hardware that we're purchasing, like the hardware doesn't necessarily go bad. If we move the poles or change the poles or whatever happens from there, the pole, like the hardware can be reused, right? Potentially. I got a drill and tap. I can make it work.
Lori,
So we're looking at the polls that we're looking at for Kerry would have their own special additions and features that you can add. So you get to pick from a list of, you know, basket hangers, banner holders. They would be specific to the pole. I would be hesitant to put in brand new light poles and put our old retrofitted hangers on, but maybe we can use them somewhere else in the community.
Councillor Todd.
With all that being considered, would the Legion be willing to hold off until we finally make our decisions about what we're going to do? Before they put up their new pole, or before they put up the new banners, or they just want the banners up?
I think they would like to have the banners up. They've been asking for quite a while now.
Okay, any further comments, questions? Everybody's clear on the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Carry unanimously. All right, so now we have the second motion, which is that no further commemorative banners, flags, or sidewalks, crosswalks be considered until such time that the comprehensive Armstrong Revitalization Initiative Kerry project has been fully implemented. Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Is there any discussion, Councillor Drapla?
Yes, thank you. I would like to see more of a definition on that. So if we're talking about, are we just talking about the downtown area, like the first phase, or are we talking about multiple phases, and how long are those out? Like, are we gonna put a stop on adding stuff into the community when the project could be 10, 15 years down the road in some cases? That seems like a long time. So I would be supportive of this if it was just the first phase of the Kerry project. Sure, I could do both sides of PV Boulevard, because if those are our first two, not really, no, they're first three phases now.
May I?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Lori.
I just would like to point out that we haven't yet defined which phases are happening when. So you might be better off to be more specific with locations than phases.
Why not consider an
Go ahead.
amendment then to that, that just says that no further commemorative banners, flags, or sidewalk crosswalks be considered until such time as phase one of the Kerry project be fully implemented. Phase one, Pleasant Valley Boulevard North of the comprehensive Armstrong Revitalization Project be fully implemented.
I'm going to put that forward as an amendment to have, I'm going to second this one. Councillor Valstar seconded, and this is for the amendment. Any further comments? All those in favor of the amendment? Carry unanimously. And is there any further comment on the motion as amended? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as amended? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have the Finance Department, the Chamber of Commerce Fee for Service Agreement Renewal. So we have Terry, our Chief CFO.
Thank you. This is a housekeeping item. The funding agreement for the Travel Info Center and Economic Development is a 2-year agreement. It comes due the end of the year. I've been in communication with Patty from the Chamber, and the Chamber would like to renew for another 2 years with no changes to the terms of the agreement, except for a possible inflationary increase. So for the past 2 years, each year, $20,000 has been earmarked for that in the agreement for the travel component, and $5,000 per year for the economic development. With regard to inflation, the average BC inflation rate last year combined with year-to-date this year averaged out, works out to 3.4%. So the amount in the proposed agreement, the proposed renewal, has been applied on a simple basis, not compounded, basically just taking the period, the 2-year period as one period, and then we would charge the $680 extra, or we would pay, sorry, not charge, the $680 extra each year for the next 2 years for the Travel Info Center, and a small amount, $170 extra for the economic development per year. And we're looking for authorization to renew that agreement with that change.
All right.
I'll make the recommendation.
So we have the recommendation, and we'll go with this, that the fee for service agreement between the city of Armstrong and the Armstrong Spell Machine Chamber of Commerce for the provision of the Visitor Information Center service and economic development for a 2-year term beginning January 1st, 2025 be approved, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to execute the agreement. Seconded by Councillor Fowler. Any further discussion? Councillor Fowler.
Just curious, how did you come up with 3,960 hours a year? And if they change their hours I mean, does that take into compensation maybe some altered hours?
That was in the agreement before. I'm not sure where that comes from, to be honest.
That's lots of hours. I'm sure it's as many hours as you have already, but it's less. As long as you're happy with those hours. Thanks.
Okay, any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Excellent. Thank you. And then we have Terry up again with fire inspection fees and renewed business licenses.
Thank you. Council may recall that approximately 1 year ago, the fees and charges bylaw was amended to have a provision for an additional $50 fire inspection per year for businesses with their business license that require an annual fire inspection. Currently, the $85 renewal fee that is charged to businesses for their business license implicitly includes the annual fire inspection. So there's no extra charge that is provided. We charged an extra fee at the initial application, but going forward on renewal, there was no fee for that. It's just implicit. The plan was to begin charging an extra $50 charge starting with the 2025 business license renewals. We are suggesting that that be deferred for 1 year, just so that we can have a look at it, a relook at it, just in light of the fact that it's a 59% increase for businesses and in 1 year, and that can be considered quite excessive. Also, we realized that we had not informed businesses that that was coming. So my recommendation is that we look at it again and come up with some further options for council, and as well engage with the Chamber of Commerce on this subject so that our businesses can be aware of what we're planning and what we're looking at. The rationale is to continue looking at a separate fee for the renewal inspection, simply because that fee really should be a revenue for the fire service, which Spell Machine should share in, because fire services are being used for providing that service. However, how it will look is we need to look at some options in order to provide something that is fair for businesses. So we're asking for a deferral on that, and we'll come back to council by June.
Good. Councillor Todd up first.
Thank you, Worship. I'm quite happy to defer that. I'd like to defer it forever personally. From my point of view, I had no problem with the fire inspections, but if it's $50 a year every year and you have to pay to get your extinguisher fixed and filled up, I think that's enough cost right there for every small business in town. They don't need the extra $50 personally. That's just my opinion.
Councillor Nietzsche.
Yeah, thank you. Terry, can you just elaborate a little bit on that second piece you talked about regarding the Township of Spell Machine and the City of Armstrong and the revenue sharing? Do we know that if on the Township of Spell Machine's business licensing fees, if they're contributing or would be contributing to that as well and sharing it? And I'm just wondering if we need to have further conversation with our partners out there, and if we are going to implement some sort of a scheme, and that maybe is part of your discussions.
Yes, thank you. The township charges a separate fee, and they do consider that to be fire revenue. So we do share, we do benefit from that with our approximate 50% share. It does benefit both communities. So it's only fair that we do the same thing with our fire inspection fees rather than it being implicitly included. We need to separate that out.
Counselor Todd.
Again, different businesses have different requirements, and I don't know if $50 for everybody is a fair deal. I think some places that are much larger, that have way more danger, are gonna, the fire inspection is gonna take a lot longer and be more intense than walking into a little room and saying, what's your sticker on your fire extinguisher say? And so those are the differences there. I can't see a $50 fee being, across the board, being a fair deal.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason for the review, if I'm understanding correctly, Terry. Yeah, just to have a good look at that.
Yeah, and just to Council Todd's point there, I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is that let's make sure that we're transparent in our business licensing. So that if we have a hidden fee that fire inspection is included in there, why don't we break it out? So we just have the business licensing fee and the fire inspection fee, and make sure that it's fair rather than just hidden inside the one thing. And then we can properly break out the revenue streams between the shared service too. So to me, it makes good sense that we let staff have the opportunity to come back with some options for us. I'm not saying that we should be opposing a $50 fee. I'm saying what we should do is make sure it's transparent so that the businesses know that it's not just implied in when you buy your license.
That's fine. If, I have no problem if the $50 was implied when you're buying your license, but if there was criteria that said you have this much more of a danger, then you're gonna pay more, then you'll pay money. But if you're just a small little joint that has one fire extinguisher and people walk in and out like, you know, a little gift shop, but you're not a danger and you're not gonna be a danger. But if you're full of flammables and wood and, you know, you're gonna burst into flames any minute, I think that should be a different criteria.
Counselor Valstar.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the transparency of breaking it out. But my question is, was the idea then to lump it in with the business license? So somebody whose business is, say, like online, and they purchase a business license, or they have an intercommunity type business, are they going to be paying a fire inspection fee as well, where they don't get fire inspections?
No, currently the bylaw stipulates that the fire inspection annually is only for those businesses that have public attendance. So not all business licenses even qualify for that. So what we're proposing is status quo for 2025 so that we can have a relook at this and come back with some options.
Thank you. I think that's exactly what Councillor Todd's point here is, that perhaps we need to do a deeper dive into the criteria for triaging businesses to ensure that we're providing a more equitable fire inspection fee. And obviously the risk associated with some businesses is going to be much higher than some other businesses. So make sure that and it needs to be relative to the amount of time it takes for the our fire staff to complete those inspections. So a little bit more analysis obviously has to go on. And it sounds like that's what staff is trying to move us towards. So I fully support the deferral and allow staff to come back to us with a more fulsome report.
Counselor Fowler.
Thank you. And I think staff's going to come back with this. We probably don't even need to carry on, but Spellen's charging $100 per fee. So that's pretty, shows that, you know, perhaps it's the bigger businesses, the mills, the big industrial businesses that are already paying more. So anyway, I'm happy to have staff come back with it.
Any other comments? I just want to say kudos to staff for catching this and making sure that we are transparent and putting pause on this, just so we can make sure that the information gets to the businesses and to do that analysis. Given the conversation that we've just had, clearly we needed to take another look at this. So thank you for that. There's no other questions. I will put a motion on the table perhaps. Unless you have anything else further, Terry. We have that the $50 fire inspection fee on renewed 2025 business licenses be deferred until 2026 to allow for further investigation of potential impacts on local businesses, and that staff to report back to council with findings prior to the end of June 2025. Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Valstar. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have our planning services with a development variance permit application. Laurie, give you a minute. You got a few things on the go.
Good afternoon or good evening, I guess. Thank you for your patience while I'm multitasking. Tonight we have before us a development variance permit application for, actually I'll back up, 2409 Jarvis Street. This is a fairly simple variance application. The applicant is looking to subdivide their lot and the lot frontage doesn't meet the requirements in the zoning bylaw. So just a quick reminder, a refresher that we cannot vary the use or the density of land, but the lot frontage is not considered part of that density. I double checked it to make sure. The applicant wants to subdivide this parcel here into 2 parcels. Because the width isn't adequate, they're looking at going from the 18 meters required in the bylaw to 10.1 meters on one side and 14.27 meters on the other side. You can see, I'll just draw your attention to the parcel across the street, which has already been split into 2. It's slightly larger, but it shows you that it is possible to do that. This is the subject parcel. It has an existing house on the property. They're looking to keep that house and in fact have been renovating that house and have provided this plan that shows us that it's possible to subdivide it, still maintain the setbacks for the existing house and have a new proposed lot 1. Through the referral process, there were no substantive concerns raised. There will be more detailed review when the subdivision application comes in because we'll have to look at servicing and all of the bigger pieces, but the variance is just about the lot frontage, so we're just focusing on that. We did receive one letter of concern from an adjacent property owner, and they outlined concerns with density being out of alignment with the character of the neighborhood. I actually reached out to her and made sure she understood that it was only 1 lot being created. And she did understand that. I think her concern was that the lot frontage was similar to those in high density zones. And I think she was concerned about setting precedents. So I did assure her that council considers these all on an individual basis and that the zoning bylaw has already been amended to allow additional density throughout the whole community at the requirement of the province. So my recommendation today is that development variance permit application 2409 DVP to vary section 9.1.3B lot frontage from 18 meters to 10 meters and 14.27 meters for the property at 2975 Jarvis Street be issued, leaving out the details in the legal description.
Thank you for reading that.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Nietzsche, and seconded by Councillor Todd, in discussion. Councillor Fowler.
Thanks, Laurie. With consideration to what Bill 44 has the potential of doing in Armstrong, I'm okay with this subdivision. Yes, it increases density. It's not the first one in the neighborhood, so a precedent would have already been set. And unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of choices in these extra lots being taken from bigger lots in town. And thank you, Bill 44.
Further questions, comments? All right, yeah, it's an unfortunate situation that we can't control the density of that, but I think I drove by it as well and I had a look and I can definitely see that the subdivision, yeah, it fits. It look like it worked to me. There's no other comments. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And we have bylaws. And we have Philippa Harding with the Armstrong Spell Machine Parks Recreation Service Intermunicipal Agreement.
This one is the bylaw agreement that was reviewed at the joint council meeting, and it is up for first 3 readings. We could not do the first 3 readings at the joint council meeting because we were actually in camera. So for transparency, we are now at an open meeting. And so it has been recommended that the Armstrong Spell Machine Parks and Recreation Services interim intermunicipal services agreement bylaw 1931-2024 be given first, second, and third readings.
Is someone to move that? Counselor Valstar, seconded. Counselor Todd, discussion, not a lot. Discussed this already. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. Counselor Fowler.
So just on the map on page 23, I'm not sure if I'm reading this wrong or not, the red line that shows the areas within the boundaries that are the park. It makes me wonder if these could be, if this line boundary could be incorrect, because I didn't realize that some of the houses along there are actually Parks and Rec property in the park. And-
Can I? Those, may I, Your Worship? Sorry.
Oh,
Those are not houses. That's actually the tennis court and but they are lots. They just don't have houses on them. And that lane that you're seeing there doesn't actually exist.
Well, that would make a difference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we should maybe have that little map amended then, so it doesn't cause angst with others. So if the lane doesn't exist,
Well, it exists in theory, but it hasn't been constructed. So like it exists on the map, but it hasn't been constructed. What we could do is have a ortho photo on top of it if you wanted to see what that actually looks like in reality. But the lane is a legal entity. It just hasn't been built.
if it's unclear to anybody, I think it wouldn't hurt just to have that map amended, that's all.
Okay, Counselor Nietzsche.
I think the bigger issue, Councillor Fowler, is the fact that how all of the parkland, both where the fairgrounds are and Memorial Park are subdivided into multiple parcels, and they were probably never, ever consolidated. And I know it's created some issues for the Kinsman Club when they were doing the work on the renovations at the campground there, because they had setback requirements and whatever else. So it may be a future project, not that I'm trying to pile anything on to staff, but we should be at some point, we should probably consolidate all of those lot lines that exist in there to some sort of more realistic version of what we have, but it might be a project for down the road.
Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Nietzsche. In fact, the previous planner at Small Machine and I had conversations about this, and we're putting it on the later list because the parcel alignment makes no sense. It isn't functional. The kin stuff is on 2 parcels, so it makes it a little bit confusing. So certainly that is, I would say, something that we should tackle in the future, just to either make the parcel lines align with what's actually there, or just make them all one. So that covers the whole, makes it one block.
Counselor Fowler.
So the lane that hasn't been constructed, it's not parkland? It's owned by
That
the
is
city-
correct.
owned by
It's
the
road
city,
right
not-
of way.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks.
Right. Any further questions, comments? Okay, so we have the motion on the floor for second and third reading. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right. So next up, we have our correspondence.
Just point of order, did we vote on both of those resolutions, or did we just vote on the one? Was that question on the first resolution, or was that question on the second resolution?
So we had that the Armstrong Small Machine Parks and Recreation Service Interim Municipal Service Agreement Bylaw 1931-2024, first, second, and third.
First, second, and third. That's all one motion. Thanks. That's all. Just wanted to get clarification. Thank you.
All right, so then we have some correspondence from the Chamber of Commerce. Philip, did you want to comment on this request, or?
So before council is a request from the chamber regarding our licensing bylaw for the mobile vendors, especially related to during the IPE, and also parking. They have requested in this letter that at our upcoming workshop that this be a subject. That is not actually something that as a council we can do. We cannot discuss things that could move the city along or potentially drive a bylaw within a workshop that has to take place at a council meeting. As far as requesting to put these items on our work plan, absolutely. Staff will for sure bring these forward to council when it comes time for work plan discussion. We cannot guarantee that these items will be placed on work plan just because you as a council has to look at the whole picture and at everything that your staff is doing and decide which priorities you want us to follow. But I do know that we have had some discussion amongst ourselves already about the business licensing and the mobile vendor. So hopefully that is something that we can for sure get in there. The parking one, we haven't had a chance to touch on yet.
Do you have any other comments, Councillor Nietzsche?
Yeah, thank you very much, Philippa, for kind of explaining that. From my perspective, I think it would be prudent on the part of council to defer the request to that council prioritization and staff prioritization exercise that would likely happen within the next month or two for the coming year, and add that to that discussion for that time.
Any other comments? On the letter from Councillor Dropler.
Sure. Thank you. I just want to say that I'm really looking forward to the workshop that we have planned and just making sure that our communications are all on the same page. I think I know from being part of these discussions, but then also being able to sit around the table at the chamber and hear their discussions prior to sending letters. I think like we're very close to kind of wanting to work on the same things. It's just sometimes when it's through formal written correspondence, things don't always they don't always seem as close together as they actually are. So I'm looking forward to that workshop.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. Anyone else? I definitely echo that. I look forward to the workshop as well. Just a chance to talk and a little more openly, and I think it'll be a great conversations. And moving along to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, structural flood mitigation, Megan Creek. I don't know if there's much, if Brad wants to add anything, but just great work done. We got the bypass that was in. We have the funding for it. I don't know if you want to add anything, talk about that at all, Brad. You're all good. Excellent. If there's no comments on that or anything, perfect. We'll move along. We have our new business. So we have our committee and commission liaison reports. Councillor Valstar, do you have anything to add to your report? Want to talk about it at all?
Yeah, sure. I'll talk about it a little bit. Yeah, so we, at the November 7th Parks and Rec meeting, we reviewed our 5-year plans, discussed just budget concerns and how we're going to be operating in with the new structure. And then at the November 18th meeting, we went over in painful detail the IPE agreement. It was a good meeting. We went over a lot of points, and we discussed changes that are happening at Ball Diamond 2, just that that they have a plan in place to kind of move that to more of a grassy spot instead of a ball diamond. And then we also discussed the Memorial Park porta potty situation, and the commission instructed staff to allocate operational funds up to $1,000 to figure out a solution for porta potties. It's a concern because a lot of daycares and early childhood educators use Memorial Park throughout the winter, and not having access to washroom facilities is a great challenge for them. So we took that into consideration.
Are there any questions, Councillor Nietzsche?
Just speaking to that issue, Councillor Balstar, I'm just wondering if the commission could consider some sort of more permanent option for washroom facilities at the park. Just like you've mentioned, there certainly is a lot more usage beyond the traditional end of September. The fact that we're having greener and greener winters means that people are using the wonderful playgrounds and the improvements that we've done there longer. I understand that the public washrooms that exist within the pool structure may not have been designed for winter use, but perhaps there's an opportunity to do a little bit of renovations there so that some of the plumbing and stuff could be could be used throughout the winter with some heating and some work there. So I'm just wondering if that's something that the commission could consider for future use rather than the temporary porta potty option, and have more options there for more permanent washroom facilities at the grounds. Something to consider.
Thank you for those comments. So are there any other comments, questions? Yeah, just thinking in terms of the chamber and the report we just received, the park is one of our gems, I think. And it's not, I don't think it is one of our gems. We have people visit from all over to come visit our memorial park. So I think those are definitely positive steps. Councillor Drapla, your report, do you have anything to add to your comments?
Maybe just a
Thank you, Councillor Drapla. Any questions on the report? Lots of good work done there. Thank you very much. And we'll move along to Councillor Fowler. You have something to present or just share with us.
Yes, thank you. There have been some meetings since, I think the first one I went to was December of last year. It's with the Okanagan-Similkameen Collaborative Leadership Table. And the result in the year was that we have a memorandum of agreement with all of the local governments in the Okanagan Basin watershed. And also the Silk Nation, which includes the Lower Similkameen Indian Band, the Okanagan Indian Band, the Assayas Indian Band, the Penticton Indian Band, the Upper Similkameen Indian Band, and the West Bank First Nations. So all of those bands plus the local governments have been at the table having these discussions. The purpose of the agreement is to formalize a government-to-government leadership table to set strategic direction and address matters of common concerns to protect and restore the silks in the Okanagan and Similkameen watersheds. So not everybody did come to the table to sign right away. There's a few of the communities that felt that they wanted to look into things a little bit further. Nothing in this agreement creates legal or financial obligations, but there's just a few things to sort out. But in the meantime, like to present the signed documents so far, of which Armstrong's Mayor Joe Kramer and myself as councillor have signed. And they have given each of the communities that have signed on so far something for us to hang on our walls to show that we're working in partnerships. So I was hoping that maybe after the meeting we could get a picture of all our elected officials and this picture with the document in hand. And I think it's a great move forward. Like I say, there's nothing legal or financially binding, but it is one of the first times that the First Nations that have been sitting at the table have been in a room collaborating with as many elected officials, and now actually to have this signed document by most of them. So it was pretty monumental, and it was actually quite emotional for a lot of them. We all understand that we need water, and we all have perhaps different priorities for our water. And that's from environment to the fisheries, salmon, they talk about the salmon, and agriculture, and for our use. So we all have to figure out how to come to the table and work together to make sure that water is used in the best and the most respectful ways for all of us. So congratulations to the City of Armstrong from the Okanagan Collaborative Leadership Association.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. That is definitely, it's an incredible partnership and an amazing opportunity of diverse knowledge and background. Oop, I'm just going to turn off your mic. There we go. All right, so, with that, we'll take our meeting to in camera. So that the motion forward that the council move to an in camera pursuant to the Community Charter Section 91C, Labor Relations or other employment relations. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are in the preliminary stages and that, in the view of the council, could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. Get someone to move by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Drapala. All those in favor? Carried. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll reconvene.